The sun hung high in the sky, casting shimmering diamonds across the surface of Lake Willow. It was one of those perfect summer days where the heat felt like a warm embrace rather than a suffocating blanket. The kind of day that seems to stretch on forever, where time slows down and the only thing that matters is the present moment. This particular lake, nestled between rolling green hills and surrounded by towering pine trees, had always been a sanctuary for those seeking respite from the chaos of everyday life. The water was crystal clear, reflecting the azure sky above, and the gentle lapping of waves against the shore created a soothing soundtrack that could lull even the most troubled mind into a state of tranquility. It was on this idyllic summer day that Alex first noticed Jamie. Alex had been coming to Lake Willow for years, a family tradition that stretched back to childhood. But this was the first time he'd seen Jamie at the annual lakeside gathering that brought together friends of friends and distant acquaintances. There was something immediately captivating about Jamie. Perhaps it was the way the sunlight caught in his tousled brown hair, or the infectious laugh that carried across the beach, or maybe it was simply the confident ease with which he moved through the world. Whatever it was, Alex couldn't look away. Let me explain why this initial meeting matters so much to our story. These first impressions, these split-second judgments we make about people, often set the stage for everything that follows. In Alex's case, that first glance at Jamie sparked something he hadn't felt in a long time. Curiosity, yes, but also a flutter of something more, something that made his heart beat just a little faster. It's these unexpected moments that often lead to the most profound changes in our lives, the kind that reshape our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Alex had arrived at the lake early that morning, claiming his usual spot on the shore and setting up his beach chair and cooler. He'd brought along his prized possession, a large, colorful inflatable float shaped like a peacock, its vibrant plumage extending behind it in a rainbow of colors. It was ridiculous and ostentatious, and Alex loved it precisely for those reasons. The float had been a spontaneous purchase during a particularly difficult time in his life, a reminder to embrace joy and whimsy whenever possible. Little did he know that this ridiculous inflatable bird would become the catalyst for one of the most significant relationships of his life. The lakeside gathering was in full swing by midday, with groups of people scattered across the beach, some playing volleyball, others grilling burgers and hot dogs, and many simply lounging in the sun, soaking up the warmth. Alex had been floating lazily on his peacock, eyes closed against the bright sunlight, when a splash of water hit him square in the face. Sputtering and wiping his eyes, he looked up to find Jamie treading water beside the float, an apologetic but mischievous grin on his face. "Sorry about that," Jamie said, pushing wet hair back from his forehead. "My aim was off. I was trying to splash my sister over there." He gestured vaguely toward the shore. Alex couldn't help but smile back. "No worries. It's actually refreshing. I was starting to feel like I might melt out here." "That's quite a float you've got," Jamie observed, admiring the peacock. "Very subtle." Alex laughed. "Subtlety has never been my strong suit. Why blend in when you can stand out, right?" "I couldn't agree more," Jamie replied, and there was something in his eyes, a spark of recognition perhaps, that made Alex's breath catch. "Any chance you'd be willing to share? I've been swimming for ages, and my legs are about to give out." And that's how it began, with a simple request to share a float. Such a small thing, really, but isn't that how most important things in life start? With small gestures, casual words, moments that seem insignificant until we look back and realize they were turning points. In this case, Alex's decision to scoot over and make room for Jamie on the peacock float would set in motion a series of events that would change both their lives in ways neither could have anticipated. As Jamie pulled himself up onto the float, water streaming from his tanned skin, Alex became acutely aware of their proximity. The float, while large, wasn't designed for two grown men, and they found themselves pressed together, shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip. There was an awkward moment of adjustment, both of them trying to find a comfortable position without tipping the whole thing over, and then they both burst into laughter at the absurdity of the situation. "I think this peacock might be a bit overloaded," Jamie said, still chuckling. "He's a strong bird," Alex replied. "I think he can handle it." And just like that, the initial awkwardness dissolved, replaced by a comfortable camaraderie that felt surprisingly natural for two people who had just met. They floated together under the summer sun, making small talk that gradually deepened into more meaningful conversation. Jamie, Alex learned, was a graphic designer who had recently moved back to his hometown after living in the city for several years. He was at the lake gathering because his sister had insisted he needed to get out more and meet new people. "And are you?" Alex asked. "Meeting new people, I mean." Jamie smiled, a slow, warm smile that made Alex's heart do a little flip in his chest. "I'd say so. At least one very interesting person with excellent taste in pool floats." Their conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and the occasional splash as one of them would dip a hand into the cool water. They discovered shared interests in obscure indie bands and foreign films, debated the merits of various ice cream flavors, and commiserated over the challenges of dealing with well-meaning but intrusive family members. All the while, the float drifted lazily across the lake, carried by gentle currents and the occasional kick of their feet when they wanted to change direction. As they talked, Alex found himself increasingly drawn to Jamie's perspective on life. There was a thoughtfulness to him, a depth that belied his easygoing exterior. When Jamie spoke about his work, his eyes lit up with passion, and when he talked about his family, there was a tenderness in his voice that touched something in Alex. It had been a long time since Alex had connected with someone on this level, and he found himself wanting to know everything about Jamie, his hopes, his fears, his dreams for the future. The sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the lake and painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Neither Alex nor Jamie seemed to notice the passage of time, too engrossed in their conversation and the comfortable bubble they had created on their shared float. It wasn't until Alex happened to glance toward the shore that he realized how far they had drifted. Jamie," he said, interrupting a story about Jamie's disastrous attempt at making souffle. "I don't want to alarm you, but I think we might have a problem." Jamie followed Alex's gaze, and his eyes widened. The shore, which had once been just a few yards away, was now a distant line. The sounds of the gathering had faded, replaced by the gentle lapping of water against their float and the occasional call of a bird overhead. They had drifted far out into the lake, carried by currents they hadn't noticed while absorbed in their conversation. "Well," Jamie said after a moment, "I guess we've really drifted away from the party." There was a metaphor there, one that wasn't lost on either of them. In the span of a few hours, they had drifted not only physically from the shore, but also from the social expectations and boundaries that typically govern new relationships. Out here, floating on their ridiculous peacock, they existed in a space that felt removed from the rest of the world, a space where they could be fully themselves without fear of judgment or consequence. "Should we try to paddle back?" Alex asked, though part of him was reluctant to end this unexpected interlude. Jamie seemed to hesitate, looking back at the distant shore and then at Alex. "We probably should," he admitted. "But maybe not just yet. It's nice out here. Peaceful." Alex nodded, relieved. "Yeah, it is." There was a shift in the atmosphere between them then, a subtle change that Alex couldn't quite define but could definitely feel. The conversation, which had been flowing so easily, gave way to a comfortable silence as they both gazed out at the water, lost in their own thoughts. Alex was acutely aware of Jamie beside him, of the warmth of his skin where their arms touched, of the rhythm of his breathing. It was both terrifying and exhilarating to feel this connection with someone he had just met, and Alex found himself wondering if Jamie felt it too. As if reading his thoughts, Jamie broke the silence. "Can I ask you something, Alex?" "Of course. Have you ever felt like you're living your life according to a script someone else wrote? Like you're playing a role instead of being yourself?" The question caught Alex off guard, not because it was unexpected, but because it hit so close to home. For years, he had struggled with the expectations his family and friends had placed on him, with the fear of disappointing them if he revealed his true self. It had taken him a long time to come to terms with his sexuality, and even longer to find the courage to live authentically. "Yes," he answered honestly. "For a long time, actually. I spent years trying to be the person everyone expected me to be. The good son, the successful professional, the guy who dates women because that's what's expected. It was exhausting." Jamie nodded, understanding in his eyes. "And what changed?" Alex took a deep breath, feeling vulnerable but also strangely safe in this moment, adrift on a lake with a man he had just met but already felt connected to. "I got tired of pretending." I realized that I was sacrificing my own happiness to maintain a facade. And for what? To avoid uncomfortable conversations? To keep people from looking at me differently? It just wasn't worth it anymore. That takes courage, Jamie said softly. It does, Alex agreed. But it's also liberating. Being honest about who you are, who you love. It's like finally being able to breathe after holding your breath for too long. Jamie was quiet for a moment, his gaze fixed on the horizon. I'm still working on that part, he admitted. The breathing freely part. My family is traditional. They have certain expectations about how my life should go, who I should end up with. And that's not what you want. Jamie turned to look at Alex then, his eyes reflecting the golden light of the setting sun. No, he said simply. It's not. There was so much unspoken in that simple statement, so much vulnerability and trust. Alex felt a surge of emotion, empathy, understanding, and something more, something that made his heart race and his palms sweat despite the cool water surrounding them. It's scary, Alex acknowledged. Taking that step, being honest about who you are. But in my experience, the people who truly love you will still love you. And those who don't, well, maybe they never really knew you to begin with. Jamie smiled, a small, sad smile that tugged at Alex's heart. That's what I'm afraid of, I think. That they'll realize they never really knew me at all. Or maybe, Alex suggested gently, they'll finally get to know the real you. And that's a gift, Jamie. The real you is pretty amazing, from what I can tell. The words hung between them, honest and raw. Jamie looked at Alex with an expression that was difficult to read, surprise, gratitude, and perhaps a hint of something more. For a moment, Alex thought Jamie might lean in, might close the distance between them. His heart hammered in his chest, a mix of anticipation and fear. But then a shout from the shore broke the spell. Someone had noticed their predicament and was waving frantically, calling their names. Reality came rushing back. They were adrift on a lake, the sun was setting, and people were probably worried about them. I guess that's our cue, Jamie said, a note of regret in his voice. I guess so, Alex agreed, equally reluctant to end this moment. They began to paddle back toward shore, using their hands as makeshift oars. It was slow going, and they worked in tandem, finding a rhythm that propelled them steadily through the water. The physical effort gave them something to focus on besides the intensity of their conversation, but the connection between them remained, a tangible thing that seemed to hum in the air. As they got closer to shore, Alex felt a growing sense of uncertainty. What would happen when they reached land? Would this connection they had formed dissipate like morning mist under the harsh light of reality? Would Jamie retreat back into the role he played for his family, leaving this version of himself, the open, vulnerable, authentic Jamie, out here on the lake? Jamie, Alex said, feeling a sudden urgency to say something, anything, before their time together ended. I'm really glad your aim was off when you were trying to splash your sister. Jamie laughed, the sound bright and genuine. Me too, he said. Best missed target of my life. They reached the shallows, where a small group had gathered to welcome them back. There were teasing comments about their adventure, questions about whether they had realized how far they had drifted, offers of food and drinks now that they had returned. Alex and Jamie played along, laughing at themselves and assuring everyone they were fine, just lost track of time and distance. But amidst the chatter and commotion, Alex felt a touch on his arm. Jamie had moved close, his voice low enough that only Alex could hear. I don't want this to be it, he said, his eyes serious. This day, this conversation, it meant something to me, Alex. Relief and joy flooded through Alex. It meant something to me too, he replied. A lot, actually. Would you want to maybe get coffee sometime? Or dinner? Or just, I don't know, talk more? Alex smiled, feeling lighter than he had in months. I'd like that. I'd like that a lot. They exchanged numbers as they helped deflate and fold up the peacock float, their fingers brushing occasionally, each touch sending a small thrill through Alex. The gathering was winding down, people packing up their belongings and saying their goodbyes as the last light of day faded from the sky. Alex and Jamie lingered, helping to clean up, neither quite ready to part ways. Finally, as the last car was being loaded, Jamie pulled Alex aside. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For listening. For understanding. For making me feel like maybe I can be brave too. Alex felt a lump form in his throat. You already are brave, he said. Braver than you know. And then, With a quick glance to ensure no one was watching, Jamie leaned in and pressed a soft, brief kiss to Alex's cheek. It was the lightest of touches, but it sent electricity coursing through Alex's body, a promise of possibilities to come. "I'll call you tomorrow," Jamie said, a new confidence in his voice. "I'll be waiting," Alex replied. As he watched Jamie walk away, Alex clutched his deflated peacock float to his chest, a ridiculous souvenir of a day that had changed everything. He thought about boundaries, the ones society imposes, the ones we create for ourselves, the ones we allow others to establish for us. Today, adrift on a lake with a man he had just met, some of those boundaries had shifted, creating space for something new to grow. The summer stretched ahead of them, full of promise and potential. There would be challenges, of course. Jamie's journey towards self-acceptance and openness with his family, the inevitable complications that arise when two people try to build something meaningful together. But standing there on the shore of Lake Willow, watching the first stars appear in the twilight sky, Alex felt a sense of hope that had been missing from his life for too long. He thought about the currents that had carried them away from shore today, how something as simple as water moving beneath them had created the space for connection and vulnerability. Sometimes, he realized, we need to drift away from the familiar to discover what's truly important. Sometimes, we need to let go of the shore to find ourselves. As Alex walked to his car, he made a mental note to buy Jamie his own ridiculous float for their next lake adventure. Maybe a flamingo to complement his peacock, or a unicorn, or something equally outrageous and joy-inducing. Whatever it was, it would be a symbol of this day, of the boundaries they had crossed together, and of the new journey they were beginning. The stars were fully visible now, scattered across the velvet sky like diamonds. Alex looked up at them and smiled, feeling a sense of rightness settle over him. Today, a chance encounter and a shared float had led to something unexpected and beautiful. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges and joys, but for now, this moment was enough. This knowledge that sometimes, the most important journeys begin when we drift away from shore, when we allow ourselves to be carried by currents we cannot see but somehow trust to take us where we need to go. And as Alex drove away from Lake Willow, the memory of Jamie's smile and the feeling of his kiss still lingering, he knew with certainty that some boundaries were meant to be crossed, some roles were meant to be abandoned, and some drifts were meant to lead us home. Not to the home we left behind, but to the one we create for ourselves when we finally have the courage to live authentically, to love openly, and to embrace the unexpected journeys that life offers us when we least expect them but perhaps need them most. 1 year later, Alex and Jamie returned to Lake Willow, this time with 2 floats, the repaired peacock and a new flamingo that Jamie had bought as a surprise for their anniversary. They spent the day on the water, deliberately drifting far from shore, creating new memories to add to the ones that had brought them together. And as the sun set on another perfect summer day, they made a pact to return each year, to celebrate the day they had shared one inflatable float and discovered that sometimes, the most beautiful journeys begin when we allow ourselves to drift, when we have the courage to let boundaries shift and create space for love to grow in unexpected places. Total _char_count, 18,832.